today's focus is emotional regulation techniques. Pretty important stuff. I would say, as an overall functioning human, we should be continually trying to get better at our emotional regulation. And so week one, we went over understanding emotional intelligence, so what it is, EQ. Last week, we went over improving self-awareness. And today, we're going to jump into emotional regulation techniques. So today has 3 parts. They're all pretty quick. Part 1 is techniques for managing emotions in challenging situations. So I think some practical tools that we could all benefit from. Part 2 is impact on decision making and relationships. So the impact of your emotional regulation and how that can affect your decision making and relationships. And then part 3 is daily practices for consistent emotional regulation. So I'm pretty excited about today's lesson. Hopefully you guys are active with me, because a lot of practical tools, not just for trading and how it can directly influence and benefit our trading careers, but also our life in general when it comes to relationships as a whole. So I think, and I would say, relationships are probably the most important thing that most of us hold at the highest value in our life, would be relationships. So it's interesting stuff. I love it. A telegram. No, I have not gotten a telegram either, Jojo. If you want to send me one. Wait, maybe I have. I'm not sure. I don't have the best memory, as we know. Anyway, let's jump into it, friends. If at any time you want me to slow down or articulate a point more clearly, or just go over something again in case you missed it, feel free to do so. I actually encourage it. I don't do these lessons just to talk to a camera. I do them to help you guys. So help me help you by talking with me. So the goal of these is to be concise and give you guys actionable protocols to take and work with. So let's jump into it without further ado. Part 1, techniques for managing emotions in challenging situations. So cognitive reappraisal. So reappraisal is a process of changing your interpretation of a situation to alter its emotional impact. So I have some examples. Let's just read through the notes. So the benefits of reappraisal is it helps reduce the intensity of a negative emotion and improves decision making by prompting rational thinking. So something we could all try to strive for, again, not only in trading, but in our lives as a whole. But for example, instead of thinking when you fail a trade or you lose out on a trade, instead of thinking, man, I really messed up, I failed at this trade, you could reframe it as, this is a valuable learning experience for future success. And I know that sounds very elementary, but it's very important, for us to understand these foundational concepts when it comes to how we should truly be thinking about our process and our journey through trading. And if you are able to, incorporate reappraisal or shift your perspective, in other words, it is really beneficial if you're able to get away from that negative headspace and say, I talked about in yesterday's risk management lesson, if we're looking at our goal with trading as a month-to-month time frame, and you're like, okay, I'm expecting to make $2,000 this month, and I'm also expecting to make losing trades. So if you're able to shift your perspective from, man, I can't believe I just failed that trade, I need to make that money back, to, no, this is part of the game plan. I understand that I'm going to lose. And now I'm able to better regulate my emotions because I have that shift of perspective. And again, it sounds elementary, but if you're not doing it, you would be positively surprised about how much benefit you can find from this stuff. So part 2 of this little first subcategory is breathing exercises. I'm not going to get too far into it, but breathing exercises focuses on controlled breathing to reduce stress and bring balance to your emotional state. It's scientific fact. Unfortunately, many people, I would say the vast majority of people living today, have forgotten how to truly breathe. And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. We're all breathing right now. On a optimal level, we are not breathing properly. When it comes to exercise, we're typically not breathing properly. When it comes to dealing with anxiety, or when you start to feel those elevated emotions and and stress responses, we start to shallow our breath, when in turn we should actually be taking deeper breaths to help regulate that emotional state, help regulate your oxygen to carbon dioxide levels. Like I said, I could get nerdy about this stuff. It is so important though that you work on your breathing. So when you find yourself in stressful situations, when it comes to things like trading and you fail to trade, or you just blew an account, those are stressful things, and they will raise adrenaline and cortisol levels in your bloodstream, and it will shift your system, from your nervous system, that is, from this rest and digest state, from everything's happy and go lucky, to a state of fight or flight. Even though it may not seem like that, that is what is happening on a biological level. So the benefits of breathing is engaging in deep rhythmic breathing helps calm the nervous system and regulate emotional responses, like I was just talking about. So really quickly, I'll go over the best scientific way to reduce that stress. It's called the physiological sigh. All you have to do is take one long inhale through the nose until your lungs are fully inhaled or fully inflated, and then another sharp inhale through the nose to fully inflate all those little alveoli, I think they're called, in your lungs, and then a long exhale through the mouth to fully deflate the lungs. So one more time, the physiological sigh, best proven way to reduce stress in real time and shift your nervous system over to a calmer state. One long inhale through the nose, then another sharp inhale through the nose, long exhale throughout the mouth. So I won't go too far into it, even though I want to. It's so important, but really I encourage you guys to try that next time you find yourself in a situation where things are stressful, whether it's in trading, whether it's in traffic, whether it's dealing with the people that you love most, whatever it is that you find yourself stressed out about, try that technique and watch how powerful it is in real time. And it also helps throughout the day as well. So my last point when we're going over techniques for managing emotions is grounding techniques. So grounding is so important. I use it all the time. So grounding involves using the senses. So your senses like touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing. Grounding involves using the senses to anchor yourself in the present moment, breaking the cycle of overwhelming emotions. So it really helps you take your perspective out of your head. A lot of us, I would say, especially in Western civilization, that's most of my experience and perspective where that comes from. I would say most of us are really stuck in our heads. A lot of us are overthinkers. We're chronically stressed. We have a tendency to move into a state of anxiety really quickly. And unfortunately, a lot of that is because we're really not paying attention and we're really not present to what's around us. And so grounding is a really good way to get yourself out of your head and break those overwhelming emotions. And it's especially beneficial for when you're in a downward spiral. They call it the tilt. When you really start to feel those emotional or your emotions take control, when you're losing trades consistently, or you took a way bigger loss than you expected and you want to make that money back and you jump into it. Grounding will help you take yourself out of your head and really look at the best route forward analytically and practically. So the benefits of grounding brings focus back to the present, reducing the emotional intensity of stressful thoughts and promoting clearer thinking. So there's quite a few different grounding techniques. I encourage you to look it up on Google for your best, what helps you the best. What I use is something called the body scan. So in conjunction with the physiological side, taking those deep breaths and shifting my autonomic nervous system back to the rest and digest, and I can focus more on the present. Well, I use that with something called the body scan, where instead of focusing on the trade and letting those emotions arise, I kind of sit back in my chair or wherever I am. Maybe it's in the driver's seat of the car or it's in bed, wherever it might be. I use the body scan by really thinking about every muscle in my body, and I start from my scalp all the way down to my toes. So I think about, if you are stressed and tense, think about how your scalp feels right now. And then you're like, oh wow, I'm actually kind of tensed up, even on my face. And then I move down to my eyebrows and then my ears, and I go through to my jaw, my neck, and my shoulders, and I kind of move around. And when you're able to make that reconnection to your body in the present moment, you would really be shocked, if you haven't tried it before, how effective that is to getting yourself out of that, emotional spiral. And so if you haven't tried it, another great technique, just like the physiological side, is something like the body scan, where you can think like, man, how does this chair feel against my body? How do my feet feel against the ground? How does this desk feel under my hands? And if you're able to put yourself in the present, I promise you, you will find clarity when you feel stressed in something like a tilt. So something that will definitely help. Just blew my account. Oh God. I was like, oh no. Well, use these techniques if you do. Hopefully you don't though. All right. How are you guys doing today? We got a few more members in here. So moving on, we just covered techniques for managing emotions and in challenging situations. Part 2, impact on decision-making and relationships. So how does your emotional regulation impact your decision-making and relationships? So the effect on decision-making. Regulating emotions allows for more deliberate and logical choices, particularly, geez, I can't speak today, in high pressure scenarios like trading. For example, instead of reacting impulsively to a market drop, use emotional regulation techniques, just like we went over, to reassess your strategy calmly. So if you are like one in that herd mentality where everybody's jumping into a trade, yet you have yet to look at it from your risk management perspective, from your strategy, instead of jumping into that, even though you feel those emotions, maybe it's greed, maybe it's excitement, whatever it might be, take a second, do a physiological sigh, do a body scan. How do your shoulders feel? Are you a little tense right now? And then look back at the screen in front of you and say, okay, I probably shouldn't look for an entry right here. It goes against what I'm looking for. So again, that's it. Your emotions have a massive effect on your decision making. Whether you are cognizant of that or not, I promise you it is a fact of biology. It's just something that comes with the human experience. We are affected by our emotions. So when it comes to something that we want to be really analytical about and logical, like technical analysis when it comes to trading, we have to try to separate and manage our emotions efficiently. So these are great techniques. And on a bigger realm, how does your emotional relationship affect your relationship, or your emotional regulation affect your relationships? Emotional regulation promotes healthier communication, reduces reactivity, and fosters empathy, improving relationships both personally and professionally. So I think all those things, I went over it briefly, but all those things are so important. And I think we know that emotional regulation really does help promote healthier communication. Huge. Reduces reactivity to some trigger that your partner or your boss or your coworker might set off. Instead of reacting to that, it really helps you bring yourself back to center and move about that conversation or that interaction in a healthier way. And it fosters empathy. I talked about empathy in prior lessons, going over how important it is for us to try to understand other people. We actually went over that in our psychology lesson week 1 on understanding emotional intelligence. Empathy is so important when it comes to emotional intelligence and understanding other people. And the more we're able to foster empathy for others and ourselves included, sometimes we have that that perceptual wall between our emotions, and we kind of put ourselves into subcategories. We have a work life, we have a spiritual life, we have a life with the wife and kids, we have a life by yourself on the fishing boat, whatever it might be. It is really important for you to have empathy and foster a self perspective of something whole, something that is not just about, I am a worker, I'm a lawyer, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I do jujitsu. Like, all these things is you as a whole, and you have to bring those things together. And so have empathy for yourself, really understand that you have very intimate and sometimes extremely difficult experiences that you've had in your life. So I don't mean to go into a rabbit hole, but oftentimes I see very, very commonly that so many people really separate their emotions from themselves. And what you're doing is you're separating yourself from yourself, and it's just detrimental. So that was a little off topic, but fostering empathy is so important. So an example of effects on a relationship. So during a disagreement with a colleague or partner, using techniques like deep breathing or reappraisal can help de-escalate tensions and find a constructive resolution. So I don't want to go too far into this. I know we all understand these things, but again, it might just be a reminder for you to take a breath when you're dealing with something that's aggravating to you, and try to move about it in the best way that you know how, in a healthy way, a communicative way. So if you guys have not heard of or read the book Crucial Conversations, put it on your to read list. It is so beneficial. It teaches you practical skills, how to communicate better, not only with your loved ones, but really at high stake, crucial conversations, whether it's with your boss, your coworker, something that's really important. And most of us oftentimes avoid those conversations as a whole. This book gives you practical tools to healthily move forward with those conversations. Highly recommend it. Couldn't recommend it enough. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a tangent there for you. We're moving into our last part, daily practices for consistent emotional regulation. Let me check the chat quickly, make sure we're not doing anything crazy. Seems like we're all good. Alrighty, we have two little subcategories in here for daily practices. We have morning routine for emotional balance. So just a nice little routine for you. And reflection and adjustment. That one's big. So morning routine, I talk about morning routine often because of how important it is to set yourself up for success throughout the day, on an emotional level, on a practical level, to get yourself disciplined and have some momentum moving throughout the day. So for me, my morning ritual, though it does change based on responsibilities and appointments or whatever it might be, there's a few things that are constant. So for me, I roll out of bed, I drink 16 ounces of water, still sitting in bed. And then I get out of bed, I make my bed, and I open up the window and I sit there for a moment, and I look at the birds, I look at the grass, I look at the trees, and I let that sunlight hit my face. And so for me, those are three things that I told myself I'm going to do the night before. And here I am the next morning accomplishing three things that I said I was going to do. So three small wins that sets me up for success. Already primed. I said I was going to do something. I did it. I'm priming myself for discipline, and it's also carrying me forward, that motivation, that momentum to, again, we talk about cognitive reappraisal. If you fail at the things that you said you were going to do the night before and you don't do them the next morning, that negative self-talk is very, very hard to avoid, and you will lose momentum. And all of a sudden, all these bigger responsibilities throughout your day that you said you were going to do, it's like, well, I already blew it this morning. I'll get to it tomorrow, or whatever the excuse is for you. So make your morning special, guys. Get into a routine of practicing easy things to accomplish, to set yourself up for discipline and for momentum. So morning routine for emotional balance. So you could, for example, start each day with a simple practice such as a 5-minute or less breathing exercise or mindfulness meditation to establish emotional grounding. So this may sound new agey for us more traditional folk, but this may truly be walking outside after you wake up and you have your cup of water and putting your feet in the grass and just enjoying outside and focusing on your breath, really trying not to think about your responsibilities throughout the day, about how you slept last night. Just being in the moment can really help you shift that, make a cognitive reappraisal from all this stuff that maybe happened in the past or that I'm thinking about in the future and all these worries. put your toes in the grass, go reconnect with nature. That's where home really is, and focus on your breathing. And it is profoundly effective. I have a little lawn chair set in the middle of my lawn. I literally walk out there every morning after I make my protein shake, and I just sit with my feet in the grass. I kind of like relax, and I try not to think about the responsibilities to come. And it's helped me a lot with emotional regulation, I could tell you that. Though I do slip up often. Those closest to me can testify to that, but I am working on it, that's for sure, and that definitely helps. So you could also use an app or a timer to help you stay consistent. And maybe you don't want to do it in the morning. Maybe you are really not a morning person. You're like, I ain't doing any of that crap in the morning, dude. I'm waking up, putting on my boots, getting my coffee, and getting in the truck and leaving. Fair enough. Well, what you could do is just try to do something at night, like set a timer for yourself after you're done with all your responsibilities. You've finished your supper. Set a timer for yourself. Maybe it's 30 minutes before bed to go outside and take a breath. And if you were to establish something like that, I can truly say, if you were to do that consistently for more than a week, it would have you would see life-changing differences in your life. And I often think, I got this from Calvin and Hobbes, I think, whoever the writers were, props to them. But I think about this so often when I see really big societal issues. I think back to Calvin and Hobbes, and I don't know which one of them said it, Calvin or Hobbes, but said, imagine if every person before bed went outside for 10 minutes and looked at the stars. I cannot imagine how different the world would be if we all did that nightly. Can you imagine, truly, if every single person went outside and looked at the stars for 10 minutes before they went to bed? The perspectual change you would have on your life is enormous. And so things like those, just walking outside in the morning and taking a breath and grounding yourself, truly does have big life impacts. And if you haven't tried it, what is there to lose? Your 5 minutes, I promise you, you can you can make up in the rest of your day for whatever excuses or responsibilities you say you have. You can take 5 minutes for yourself. Focus on your heart. Focus on your breathing. It's okay. Take a deep breath. Everything will turn out exactly the way it should. So moving into our last part, reflection and adjustment. Reflect on emotional responses throughout your day to understand triggers and how you handled them. I can give you an example today. I went to get those 2 MRIs and the arthrogram. They gave me the wrong address for the MRI. So I drove to, which isn't a big deal for me. I don't mind driving, but I drove to this hospital, went in there, like, hey, they're expecting you at this different location. It's like, okay, cool. I get in the parking garage. I try to get out. The thing's not working. They didn't give me a free coin, which they were supposed to, so I could get out. And it was $2 to get out. I'm like, okay, whatever, don't care. Put my card in. The card reader is not working, and there's already a line behind me. I'm like, okay. I try to hit the call button. Nobody's there. Call button's broken. And so I give a tiny little honk to give the person behind me a heads up that I'm going to back up so that they can continue through. The person took, I'm not kidding you, 3 minutes to move out of my way when I was trying to back up. I was like, okay, that's all right. We're good. We're doing good. And then as I'm pulling out, they roll down their window to yell at me. And I'm like, I was like, in that moment, I immediately felt like yelling back at them and saying a bunch of, really getting my head clear. And, but that was something I was able to reflect on in the moment, in real time, because I am practicing it. So as soon as they yelled at me, I was like, oh, I got all tense. And then I'm like, and I talked to Jesus. I'm like, I'm sorry, Jesus. I should not be thinking those thoughts. I should not be wanting to say these things to that person. But man, oh man, does the ability to reflect on your emotional responses as you feel them will change your life. If you are not paying attention to those emotional responses, you're just going to let them slide. Whether they're good or bad, most of the time I would argue they're probably not the healthiest way about regulating your emotions, and you're just letting it fly, whatever it is, whatever emotions you feel built up, and they could be building on themselves and making worse and worse habits for yourself and your relationships, and start to kind of degrade your life as a whole. Because for me, again, life is about community and relationships, and if you start to build bad habits to where you're not fostering good relationships and communication with the people that you care about, it's kind of like biology. You often think that if you're not progressing, you're regressing, and that's kind of the truth. There's a small hint of truth to that. So again, just a practical exercise. This is reflection on your emotional responses. So next time you do feel something like what I went through this morning, or you're in traffic and someone cuts you off and you're like, take a second. Like, why did I respond like that? Like, should I be thinking like that? Is that healthy for me? Is that healthy for them? Does it help anyone around us? And again, I'm not saying that we're going to become perfect and that our emotions are not going to arise, because they will. But having the wherewithal to really understand what's going on and to move forward in the best way is so beneficial for every aspect of your life, including trading. So practical exercise for reflection and adjustment. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what emotions did I experience and how did I manage these emotions? What could I have done better? And so I do this at night, and that's typically only for bigger interactions. Like if you had a conversation with someone that really didn't go the way you thought it was going to go, and you didn't react the way you said you were going to, or whatever it is, or maybe someone calls you out of the blue, or you walk into the door and then you just get yelled at for something that may not even be your fault, and then you reacted instead of taking a breath, grounding yourself, and moving forward in the best, healthiest way. You kind of reacted. I kind of reserve my nights for that, like before bed, to for these bigger questions. What emotions do I experience during that time, and what could I have done better? But the in real time stuff, like I was talking about earlier, that reflection on emotional responses in real time is so beneficial, and that's something that has changed my life for the better. I would say, I would hope so, to where when you feel that aggravation of someone yelling at you for you trying to get out of the way and make things faster, having that wherewithal to really take a breath and be like, okay, my response will do nothing for this situation, and I should only facilitate healthy communication and love. So that's what I got for you guys today. My closing statement is, by developing emotional regulation techniques like cognitive reappraisal, breathing techniques, and grounding, you improve not only your decision-making skills, but also the quality of your relationships and your ability to navigate difficult situations effectively. Dude, that's awesome. If you guys are to implement this stuff, and if I just help one of you guys with any one of these techniques, it will have life-changing effects if you stay consistent to them. And I don't like to promise things, but that's pretty dang close to what I can get to a promise for you guys if you were to implement this stuff. So appreciate you guys tons. If you guys have any questions, I most likely have answers. If I don't have the answer, I will find that answer for you. If not, I hope you guys, practice some of these things today. Go do the hard thing. Go eat the healthy option. Go work out. Go move your body. We're meant to move, folks. Go drink water. Go tell your loved ones that you love them. We always think we have more time than we really do. So I appreciate you all, and I love each and every one of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.